Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Murder, where I'll be talking about and reviewing an episode of Poirot, Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis Murder, or Jonathan Creek. Today, I'm looking at Murder, She Wrote, Double Jeopardy. Or as I like to call it, that time someone was killed by Jessica's writing class. We begin the episode with some funky sax music and a basketball game. Are they on the holodeck? Because Chakotay is here, while Jessica is teaching a creative writing class and sets them all homework. Gee, thanks. Jessica knows Father Michael because she knows everyone, like everyone. And they try to out-nerd each other with their book trivia before they find out a verdict has been reached, something Michael is very interested in. Frank Fernandez has been found not guilty of the murder of Roberto Galvan because no body was ever found, and a fight nearly breaks out over the verdict. And these two have a sass-off before Father Michael gives Frank a look. Jessica hands out marks and sits down with Jose, who is falling behind due to the recent verdict. This girl asks about poisons, sus, and afterwards they discuss Jose applying to the police force. These two very similar looking girls confuse me, before Sergeant Davis warns about Frank's son and spills the tea that he thinks Frank is actually guilty despite the lack of evidence. Father Chakotay does his thing in church and comforts the victims' families and warns Tony not to do anything dumb before revealing he plans to run for office in Roberto's place. Frank and Raymond discuss bad guy stuff, and Frank is mad when Raymond smack talks Michael, who admits to Jessica he thinks he's in over his head. Oh, look who's come to visit! And Frank asks Michael to drop out of the running and threatens him before putting his hat back on in a way that always makes me laugh.
I know I should pray for him, and yet a big part of me doesn't want to.
Savage! Jessica smells that something is up, and Michael reveals that Frank is his father, something he discovered when he was 10 years old. She then goes to check up on Maria, who's struggling with her husband's death, while Frank catches Raymond peddling drugs, which causes a row, and I'm sure this guy was in the A-team at some point. Jessica gets a phone call saying Roberto's body has shown up. Hey, is that M. Bison? Jess, do you really need 2 fruit-shaped egg timers? Anyway, the sergeant wants Jess to come and talk to the family, and while the bullet matches Frank's gun, double jeopardy prevents them from doing anything, and Davis warns them not to retaliate. Maria blames herself because she pushed for the trial in the first place, and Ruth and Jose have a loud public argument, but the acting isn't great, so have a smooch. Jose flips out in the flower shop, which causes a row with his little brother, and then Raymond and his hired muscle Manny break in looking for the brothers, but they fled, so Maria tells them to piss off. Michael angrily goes to see his father, which results in a gun being pulled on him, and Frank promises the violence ends here and yells at Raymond for being a dick. Later, Frank rings Michael and asks to come see him to confess, which he agrees to before Frank disowns Raymond. He goes to the church to meet Michael and goes into confessional where someone sprays him in the face and runs away, causing Frank to struggle to breathe, where he's found by Michael and dies in his arms. Aww, he's so sad. Jessica pops by for a visit and Michael says he was late because of a call, before Sergeant Davis points out the odd stain in the confessional booth. Ew. Jessica tells Tony about the murder, so he runs away, and Davis says the poison came from special plants that they keep in the flower shop, which puts suspicion on the Galvan family and Ruth, so of course it's not actually them. Raymond tries to give Michael money for the church, but he doesn't want it because dodgy, so Raymond kicks off and storms out. And Maria goes to the police station for information, but finds out that Jose checked out a book on poisons, so she confesses to the murder. Clearly it's bullshit and she's sent away, and Jessica rushes to the library where she discovers anyone could have signed out the book under Jose's name, and it's been returned, so Jessica wants it. Ruth admits to Jessica she was in the church the night of the murder and says Jose was the killer. At least someone was wearing his jacket. So Jessica passes the information on to Maria, who questions Tony, but he says he didn't do it. Things aren't looking good for Jose until Jessica realizes the papers never mentioned the confessional and announces she knows who the killer is, so they go to see Raymond, where Jessica straight up sasses him. He dated Denise to get insider information and signed the book out using Jose's real name, not Joseph, Joseph, which he always went by, and he told Michael that Frank died in the confessional, which is something only the killer would know, and a duplicate jacket was found in his car. He says he has no motive, but Jessica says he killed Frank because he was about to confess that Raymond murdered Roberto, and with his fingerprints all over the poison book, he admits it and is arrested. This episode was alright. Not great, not bad, it was fine. But I chose to cover it because it featured Robert Beltran, and if you're not aware by now, I am a big Star Trek fan. Amidst all the jumping from scene to scene and bickering between almost every character, the mystery was actually laid out really clearly, so you could pick up on the clues, such as Denise asking about poisons, Jose going by Joseph, and Raymond slipping up when talking to Michael, and work the crime out for yourself. It was perhaps a little too obvious that Raymond was the killer, especially if you're used to the Murder, She Wrote formula, but I'd rather that than episodes where the clues are all off screen and you only learn about them when Jessica reveals them at the end. Speaking of Jessica, she was less proactive in this one. Not a criticism, just an observation, as she seemed to show up and listen to people's problems like the sweetheart she is, rather than poke around the case. At least not until the end, when she was needed. I struggled a bit with how similar Ruth and Denise looked, so I was kind of confused at first who was in the church during the murder. This is why I label the characters for you lovely people, and I felt at the start there was a lot of characters to take in, as well as the news position about the trial, but I think that's why they spend more time on the characters before they kill Frank off at the 30-minute mark. Finally, I want to mention the music, which felt incredibly nostalgic to me, as it felt very Grim Fandango and The Last of Us at times, which I really enjoyed, and I felt it added to the atmosphere of the episode, and I wish I could have included some of it. In fact, let's see if I can, without YouTube getting mad at me. We have two victims, Roberto Galvan, who I don't have a picture of, so here are his family, shot because he was going to bust the drug operation, and Frank Fernandez, poisoned because he knew about the other murder, both done in by our killer Raymond Fernandez, who tried unsuccessfully to frame Jose Galvan. So there you have it. That was Double Jeopardy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want more videos like this one. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and keep an eye out for clues.